El ejército boliviano no ha ganado una sola batalla internacional porque no ha sido creado para eso. Ha sido creado para masacrar a las comunidades aymaras y quechuas. Esa es su misión. El indio no tiene religión, tiene espíritu. Porque el espíritu no es hechura humana, es eterno. La religión es hechura humana. Las religiones nacen, crecen y se mueren. Por eso muchos libros se llaman historia de las religiones. El espíritu no es historiable. No tiene nacimiento ni tiene fin. Es muy diferente. En estos 5 siglos, el aymara, el quechua, ha ido avanzando en muchos terrenos. Ha ido avanzando también dentro de la Iglesia Católica. La Iglesia Católica se ha ido indianizando. Nuestro presidente Evo ha nacido, como todos los bolivianos en aquel entonces, católico. Pero ahora la orden del imperio es atacar el catolicismo y fortalecer las sectas. Y es lo que está haciendo este gobierno. En las últimas elecciones las sectas le han apoyado más que la Iglesia Católica. Uno de los peores compromisos de Evo con los dueños del mundo ha sido expandir el hambre. El aymara, el quechua, ha regalado al mundo 56 comidas básicas, papa, maíz entre ellas, con el mexicano. Y es uno de los pueblos más desnutridos. Ahora, el compromiso del Evo es convertir el hambre crónica del pueblo indio de los Andes en hambre crítica. Ustedes saben que el pan ha subido de precio y ha bajado de peso. Los jarros para la juntuma en los mercados se han encogido. Pocas veces el hambre ha golpeado tan duro al pueblo aymara como bajo el gobierno de un presidente aymara. Cada vez hay más hambre en el mundo indio y cada vez va a haber peor hambre. ¿Por qué? Los indios estamos sobrando, los negros están sobrando, los asiáticos están sobrando, los árabes están sobrando, de acuerdo a ese plan. Por eso, el compromiso del actual presidente Evo de convertir el hambre crónica en hambre crítica, en matar de hambre a este pueblo. Otro compromiso igual de criminal, alcoholizar a las masas hambrientas. En muchas tienditas no hay pan, no hay comida, pero no falta el alcohol. La pelea central aquí en los Andes es la lucha liberadora. Una lucha, una guerra es liberadora cuando es real. Y esa lucha es entre el Collasuyo, la precolonia, y Bolivia, la colonia.
On September 20th, 1977, about 100 delegates from 15 countries of North, Central, and South America crossed the threshold of the United Nations in Geneva. They were led by the International Indian Treaty Council, the first indigenous organization to obtain the status of non-governmental organization at the UN. The delegates, representing nearly 20 million Indians, brought out very clearly during the conference the 4 issues of greatest importance to them all, those of nationhood, land rights, genocide, and self-determination. The words of prophecy addressed by Chief Seattle in 1854 to the President of the United States were recalled by Russell Means of the Oglala Sioux.
Tribe follows tribe, and nation follows nation. It's like the waves of the sea. It is the order of nature, and regret is useless. Your time of decay may be distant, but it will surely come. For even the white man's God, who walked and talked with him, as friend with friend, could not escape the common destiny. We may be brothers after all. We shall see. Hetchetula.
God. Mamapaksi, Kamaraki, Hachakoyonaka, Warawaranaka, Achatilanakana, Uchanakana, Akayunakapa, Hawila, Chikat Asepeta, Sapakat Mainiro, Marakan Asepeta Tawa, Chikat Asinipeta, Haniwanta Tapeta Tate, Umanaka Wawanaka Abstai, Wawanaka Mapstai, Wanan Munanya Paro, Nanakaha, Pokan Muna Paraksma. Kalau nak suci, saham kalau dia yang kana, yang pun di mana, ya kasui sasisio kana ha. Kalau nak aku terakiwa, siapa sarung untas jenis Kristo, anci cawra sanha.
Ngagagis mo nes kagagis mustamat no kakio, untagais kapawik, Kristo ispepego kakio kagis mo no.
Some governments, and there is a move within the United Nations to institute rights of Mother Earth. But in using the language of rights, there is that whole issue of the duty bearers and the enforcers. And in some of the countries that have already used this, for example in Ecuador, the government is the duty bearer and the arbitrator of these rights of Mother Earth. And they are now using this against indigenous peoples, against some of our very basic, long and traditional practices by saying that these practices are against Mother Earth. Therefore, I think we really need to study whether that is the appropriate language we should be using and how, in our reaching out to the environmental movement and the realization that we are in a crisis, whether or not we will follow the current move to call for a law against ecocide and the rights of Mother Earth, or what will be our response and the teaching and sharing that should come from indigenous peoples in respect to this current movement. I think we do need to think about it because indigenous peoples are now being persecuted very much on the basis of the rights of Mother Earth. For example, in Asia, our practice of rotation agriculture that involves burning is being called a crime against climate change. And the fines being imposed on our communities for this so-called crime are tremendously high. And we are the ones being put on the dock for our practices, which in fact have managed these areas for generations.
I think we did get into a lot of the bashing of Christianity. I think if we made a show of hands, I think everybody almost in this room was baptized at one time. Myself, I was baptized 3 times. So, on one hand, we have to tell the truth about Christianity, but the question is not whether or not we believe in Christianity. The question is, what is the role of spirituality? To me, the role of spirituality in our movement gave us a foundation. It gave us a weapon against colonialism, to give us our identity back of who we are, to fight against the idea of the cultural ethnocide. This was a term that was should we say, brought into acceptance by a professor that was here in 1977. His name was Robert Jolin. He's from the University of Paris. And so I want us to, like my friend said after we had a session like this at one of our movement conference. And he says, Bill, he said, I don't want to be a white man no more. Could I just be a non-Indian? So the role of the spirituality has really brought us to who we really are. It's not important whether a Christian flooded the Euphrates. I think the importance is we have our identity back of who we are. And so I think that to answer the question, when we were looking for identity as a movement of the American Indian movement, we went back to some of our traditional people. And through that, then we began to understand the process of colonization. The role of the church was to be the intelligence of the military. Before the computers, they only had to bring in the missionaries to decide who's not going to church, who's not getting baptized, who's going to prison. That was the role, another role that the church had. But on the other hand, the church, for example, in the hanging of 38 of our people in 1862, some of the ministers prevented, there was really 380 people that were sentenced to hang. But it was the ministers stepped forward to save over 300 people. So sometimes, and we had the mission schools on our reservation, they taught us the English. They taught us to compete in this world. So on one hand, we have friends who are Christian. We have some people who played an important part in our communities in the issue of survival. So I don't want us to get into the bashing. I don't want to get us to bashing of all the white men, because it's up to us to determine who we are. And most of us was baptized, and now we have some people who get spiritually drunk, as Crow Dog used to say. Once they find their self, their identity, they want to be a shaman right away. They want to start giving Indian names. They want to have a Sundance for white people in Germany. These type of things. So these are the role of spirituality, has been to give us our identity back, our foundation for a movement that truly represents the people and the history of our people, not to deal with the Christian. That's another argument. Okay, thank you.
Back again in 1981. So I think we need to remember that as being very important in our movements as Indigenous peoples. I think we need to realize that our ancestors, the ones that gave us the instructions to come to this place, this house here, we need to remember the very strict instructions that they gave us as far as the protection of our rights, the protection of Mother Earth, the protection of our future generations. And that's one of the things that concern me, and I know that it's very difficult to convene and to do the logistics of this kind of a gathering. However, I think it would have been nice if that could have been included, the pipe, and I don't think it's too late. I think when we have those ceremonies, I think it really focuses us on why we're here, and that's for the rights of our people at home that cannot be here, and the rights of all those that cannot speak for themselves. And also, I think the ones that we're here for is our children, our grandchildren, and some have great-grandchildren. I'm not there yet. When I first came to this place, I was a very young person, but now today I have grandchildren, so I think about them. And I'm not far from being a great-grandparent too, so that's what's really important here. Not about who knows more about this religion or that, I think we need to go back and focus on why it is we're here and what got us here in the first place. Thank you.
Porque este trabajo no puede quedar así tal como está. Eso, el propósito de esta reunión va un poco más allá, llegar a una completa, libre determinación en donde los pueblos tengan una libertad sin coerción, sin que las constituciones, sin que los reglamentos y las reglas y las normativas sean obstáculos para desarrollar. No me cansaré de repetir que los estados y sus gobiernos están interpretando el espíritu de las leyes consagradas en las cartas magnas de acuerdo a sus conveniencias, a los intereses. Por encima de la dignidad del ser humano están los pocos centavos, en nombre de erradicar la pobreza en todas y cada una de las comunidades existentes. Mi preocupación es cómo llegar con la juventud de todos los demás estados que no están aquí. Entonces requieren de un mecanismo de un mecanismo de encuentro, de un mecanismo para continuar este tipo de trabajo.
Actualmente soy miembro de una organización llamada Cúscura en la lengua brunca y nos dedicamos a trabajar con jóvenes y niños indígenas porque sabemos que ahí está el futuro que nos va a relevar en nuestras funciones. Yo decidí de enfocarme en una sola cosa y era el proyecto de declaración sobre los derechos de los pueblos indígenas de las Naciones Unidas y en eso terminé hasta el 2007. Con grandes ilusiones también llegué acá y me di cuenta que un proyecto, una idea que uno tiene necesita de 2 a 3 años para hacerlo realidad. La burocracia es tan grande que no logra uno entender esas cosas. Después de aprobar la declaración en la Asamblea General en Nueva York, se estableció el mecanismo de expertos sobre los derechos de los pueblos indígenas de las Naciones Unidas y tuve el privilegio de ser miembro de este organismo aquí en Naciones Unidas como experto durante 5 años. Terminé prácticamente este año, que ya vino el sustituto mío por América Latina y el Caribe. Y creo que a la vez cerramos un círculo, pero estamos abriendo otro círculo, en el cual estamos involucrados lógicamente nosotros, pero la juventud que aquí nos está acompañando, en nombre de toda la juventud indígena del mundo, tienen una enorme responsabilidad de llevar a la práctica todo lo que hemos logrado en teoría, los derechos de los pueblos indígenas en el marco de la autodeterminación de nuestros pueblos. Yo creo que ellos son los que asumen esa responsabilidad y no podrán frenar en ningún momento todo esto. No hay que parar un instante. Nuestros estados siguen marginando, maltratando, violando los tratados internacionales que ya tenemos, y eso no puede ser. De alguna forma tenemos que frenarlo y es a la futura generación los responsables de esto.
Y vamos a dar todo lo que tenemos para que ello continúe en los próximos 37 años que hemos estado separados desde 1977. En Nicaragua hemos avanzado. Tenemos un gobierno autónomo, tenemos derechos específicos en las constituciones, pero tenemos mucho que hacer, porque las opresiones han cambiado de figura. Ahora no es la opresión del arma, sino tenemos la opresión de las leyes. Tenemos opresión del modelo económico. También tenemos opresión de no acatar las normas internacionales. En Nicaragua nosotros hemos luchado y hay un sinnúmero de buenas normas internacionales, pero no llegan, porque los gobiernos nacionales los gobiernos nacionales han dicho que los problemas indígenas es ocupación doméstica. Y ahí es donde nos tienen marginados, a pesar de que afuera tenemos leyes que nos protegen, leyes que nos permiten ser lo que queremos ser.
I get emotional because it was the very first time that I experienced a threat from within my own country of this nature. And when I arrived, he came up to me, introduced himself, and he said, I'm here to make sure you get to the conference and we'll make sure that your voice is heard. And so they, with some UN security fellows, with himself, he showed me the 6 Australian security fellows who was waiting at the airport to pick me up and turn me back on an aeroplane and keep me away from the conference. And I came here and it was wonderful because he took me up on that stage which was elevated that he had referred to yesterday and got me up on the front and made me, asked me to deliver my paper. And that concerned the Australian government very seriously, particularly the Americans with their ambitions to militarise Australia for and on behalf of America. So I'd just like to thank you.
Lehuat lo toca Natalio Hernández, Niguala y Pancetla Altipactli y toca Chalchicuyan Tlali, Tlemexco Tlaltipactli Totlatnanzi. Pensar que los pueblos originarios de México no estamos solos. Pensar que los pueblos originarios de América no estamos solos. Pensar que los pueblos originarios de África, de Australia, los hermanos Inuit del Canadá, los hermanos que vienen de esta parte de Noruega, de Oslo, los hermanos pues de todo el mundo, no estamos solos. Y entonces allí entendí con las palabras de Mike Mayer que ya no era necesario seguir llorando. Teníamos fuerza, teníamos energía, teníamos raíces y tenemos raíces.
In good faith and with the right political will, want to undertake the mission of a convention. Well, that's a whole other story, but I think that we need to pause and think carefully about such a political enterprise. I mean, I could say a lot more about that particular dynamic, but I think we have to take the caution that Willie was making earlier, take it seriously, and build on what we happen to have here and now today. And I'll finish with one other comment, and that is the way that we handled the issue of the UK not wanting to recognize collective rights of Indigenous peoples was, it wasn't just the UK, but they were the main face of it, the ultimate colonizers on the planet, right? Was to go around the entire room, as far as every Indigenous people, nation, or community that was represented, and ask them, how many of your national constitutions use the term peoples? How many of your national laws and policies use the term Indigenous peoples? Your own governments, and this is what customary international law is what the state behavior happens to be. We had a long list, by the time we were done, of national laws, constitutions, policies, and so forth that use the term Indigenous peoples. In Spanish, it was indios. It depended on the particular legal context, but this is the way that we were able to force nation states to say, oh yeah, we do that, you're right. This is our behavior. This is what we've done domestically, so why should we oppose it internationally? It wasn't that easy, but in terms of the argument, but that's an example of how the present language of the Declaration can be utilized to force change. Now, of course, we would all like to have a big stick. I mean, I would love to have one. I'd love to be a permanent member of the Security Council, but we're not, and we don't have that big stick. But we have to use what we have in terms of
of the present-day tool of the Declaration, and whoever made the comment about intersecting it with the ILO Convention, intersecting it with the OAS proposed declaration, any other international human rights treaty or instrument or existing indigenous nation-state treaty out there, whatever tool it is that we happen to use, that we should cultivate that and also maybe have our own internal quiet discussion about what are the pros and cons and the real potentiality of a convention.
Nosotros los indianistas comunitaristas de ellos somos presos políticos. Somos prisioneros, no somos nación clandestina como alguien nos dice. No es, señor, de ninguna manera es nación clandestina, porque la nación clandestina significa estar libre. Está en algún lugar, pero es libre. No, nosotros estamos a la vista de todo el mundo, estamos presos porque todo el mundo nos ve que estamos presos, controlados de todo, controlados nuestras casas, controlados nuestras reuniones. En estos momentos, todos los indianistas, comunitaristas de ellos, de este lugar, piden asilo político en cualquier parte del mundo. Porque somos permanentemente perseguidos. Pero no podemos funcionar, pues si nos tiene agarrado el Estado boliviano, no podemos accionar. Nuestras contribuciones de los impuestos y tantas otras cosas más, no podemos administrarnos porque ellos administran como quieren. A estos foros internacionales, ellos, su gente manda, la gente nativa que está con el oficialismo, que está en contra de nosotros, a ellos manda, los financia, lo que sea, pero nosotros no tenemos la voz. Personalmente, y los hermanos indianistas comunitaristas de ellos, jamás hemos renunciado al collar suyo. En cambio, para nosotros siempre será abominación, vomitable Bolivia, porque no es nuestro.
But what we found in their culture, and this would be the first violation of the rights of our Mother Earth, was that the human men created a conspiracy with the male water to rape and dominate the female earth through the creation of irrigation. That the cutting open of this female entity and forcing the male water into her and further away from the floodplain, so that they could control the birthing cycle of the world, of their world at that time. And how traumatic of a cultural change that had to be. There is no way in any of the Haudenosaunee languages, as a matriarchal culture, that we can talk in our language about the cutting open and the rape of our Mother the Earth. We can't even have that discussion. But those people did. And when they did, and it was done by the men, the whole of their spiritual, cultural, linguistic, everything, tradition changed. And all of the female spirits, high spirits, were demoted to less than the male spirits. And so begins the formation of this angry male god hovering in the universe, ready to strike down anyone who goes against him. That's the beginnings, that's the origins. It begins with the deliberate male conspiracy between human males with the water male to rape the female earth.
Nigan, kahkiouktatam skadnao. Mustaiki goima semina kuts mamu upia ngeton. Maikan muhteun sigasun.
We need to utilize all levels of parliamentary committees, whether it's a Human Rights Committee, whether it's an Aboriginal or Indigenous Affairs Committee, whether it's an International Affairs Committee. We need to use those parliamentary committees to not only enforce implementation, but educate the parliamentarians. So in that regard, there's also a UN handbook being developed or is developed for parliamentarians of the world to get to know more about the Declaration as parliamentarians. When there's a lawsuit, in a statement of claim or in a statement of defense, I think someone said earlier that we need to refer to the Declaration, where we use it as an offensive argument or a defensive argument, but we need to put it into the courts. The judges themselves need to be educated on the Declaration. So perhaps another handbook is needed to be in the way of parliamentarians to educate the judges.
So when I got home, I did certain things because of what we said and what we heard in this room. Some people would say I am successful today. But as a people, we are not successful. As a people, we are oppressed all over, including internally. Okay. We are denied the right to be free. We have the idea of freedom with a collar around the neck and someone holding that leash. But I had the dream when I left in 1977 that leash would be taken off. And then I had the opportunity to roll up my sleeves and to go to work, to show my children and my grandchildren the way to be a people, the way to stand together as one people. At that time, the word the Western Hemisphere was thrown around quite easily. We have had opportunity one after the other to be successful as a people. The government that I thought was mine in 1990 told the Prime Minister of Canada, go ahead and get rid of those warriors. Okay. I am in a position where everyone understands English today. English. In my language, the word that takes the place of warriors is ruskanagetta. It has nothing to do with warriors, but a responsibility to protect the interests of my people in my land. I still live in my land. It's called by another name today, but it is still my land. I have never been conquered, and I have never sold Mother Earth that I was placed on, and I never will. So I still have the rights. My children still have the right. My grandchildren will still have the right as long as I'm still standing here to protect those rights. It is the responsibility of every one of us in this forum to go home, to teach, to stand for the right thing. Not because of personalities, but because it is the right thing. Skono Olivio ka satstaksara. That's what we're taught. Some of our people do go to forums like this all over the world and speak about those principles. But when they come home, it's not in practice. It's not there. Otherwise, in the 30 some odd years that we've had time to build us up as a people so that we can breathe again in our own land, would have been possible. I could go on and on because our history is so full of information that is great and that is oppressive. But that will be for another time. I just wanted to let you know today I am happy to be here amongst you again today. I am Gatnasharaga in my own language, my name, the White Feather, okay? And I am of the Bear Clan from Akuzasta. I don't know where the word Mohawks came from and why. There's many different understandings. But I'm a Ganyokeaka. Okay, thank you.
Well, it's been a long journey. Those people who have been here for the first time, 77, started before that, as will be pointed out by some of the other speakers. But when we were preparing to come here, and talk about the Haudenosaunee chiefs sitting in council, we discussed what would we say if perhaps this was going to be the only time we may get a chance to speak to the world. And it was decided that we should speak on behalf of the natural world if this was the only chance we had to speak. Because they could not speak for themselves. And they're fundamental to our life and fundamental to who we are, as has been pointed out several times here. And my young brother here, he's from the Bear Clan. And that is a family, and I am from the Wolf. And we were fortunate to be instructed and to have a family that ties you to the earth. These clans tie us to the earth. We can't forget who we are in that direction. So the relatives that we have, our relations, are our responsibility. And in return, if we do things correctly, we will have a good life. Our brothers, the Western Hemisphere, the industrial nations, do not have this instruction. And they do not have a relation with the earth that's close enough to understand that it's our survival as a human species that's at stake. And we are challenging that now. But our message remains the same. Our message is consistent, it's constant. The ceremonies instruct our people to be respectful for the earth, to understand the earth, so that we may live in a good way. Life is in a cycle. I remember somebody asking me one time what my bottom line was. What is your bottom line? They said. And I couldn't answer because I didn't know. I had to think about it. I said, where is my bottom line? What is that? Well, the reason why I couldn't answer is because it's an economic term. Don't think in that style. And I came to the conclusion that indigenous people do not have a bottom line. We live in a cycle. We live in a circle. Spring, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter, around and around. And it's that cycle that sustains us. And if we don't understand how it works and why it works the way it is, we're not going to survive as a species. When we came here in '77, we also talked about treaties and the importance between human beings to have good relations and understand and have a good word. And those treaties still stand, because if nations cannot keep their word, if nations cannot have a moral stand rather than an economic stand, and we will certainly all not survive. And so in the beginning of all of this, it's an old story. We're old people. We've been here a long time. They called our world a new world when they came here. There's nothing new about our world. Very old, ancient. Our people are ancient. And so we're here to remind people that this is the case indeed. And we're going to hear more. We're going to hear more today about the different events, but for ourselves, and our message remains the same. If you do not understand the natural law, then you will bear the consequence of your conduct. There is no mercy in the natural world, none. There's only the law, the rule, and if you don't abide, you suffer the consequence. And that's the reason for our ceremonies. That's the reason why we have the songs. That's the reason why our nations cannot exist without song. We couldn't operate without song. We have to have it. And you'll hear it every time we meet. So I urge you all to think in terms of the future. 7 generations, we say. That's a very serious term. That's the children coming. That's our responsibility and why we're here.
My name is Aline and Cotier, and everybody knows me better as Chalky. So I came in 1977 as a child of parents who have been fighting all of our life for our rights to exist, and fighting relocation, fighting termination of our existence, fighting abrogation of our treaties, and then being instrumental in occupying Alcatraz in the Bay of California, USA. So I always considered myself a 4th generation activist that I had nothing to do with developing. I just grew up with it. And so I think as a core of the people that came here were the Meanses, that Bill is my godson by accident. He is my relative, but my mom was sick when she was supposed to be his godmother, so I became his godmother. And so it was a family operation that we came here. And what I learned individually as a woman and watching what my parents went through was that this is an international struggle. And what I learned when we first came here in the discussions and trying to have people who worked at the UN trying to find a place for us was there was no place for us, because we as indigenous people have been dealing with policies forever that are genocidal, that are intended to eliminate us. And the fact that we continue to exist, and there's no place in the world that has laws that say and acknowledge us in our existence, only our termination of existence. That's where our fight was. And our fight was not in the human rights arena for individual rights, but the fight for our collective rights to exist. The fight to teach our children, the fight to give our culture and our language to our children, and all of the relationships that are within the way we speak to one another, the way we relate to each other. Our prayers and our discussions begin and end with all my relations. All my relations is all of us. Animal, grass, vegetable, and which we are part of that. We are animals. And, but we each have our very unique collective right to exist. And I think that was a key to what we came out of here with. And since then, we also recognize that part of our colonization was to weaken or eliminate the strength of women. And we as women said, oh no, we have always been and will continue to be, as Indigenous women, the backbone of our existence. Men speak, and men are beautiful and gorgeous with all of their regalia. And we love them dearly, but it's the women that get the work done. It's the women who got the work done here. And so we didn't want that forgotten. So we started Women of All Red Nations after we left here in the United States, which continues to do work. We started more Indigenous organizations. We started Indigenous World. So we would have a broader voice. So we had more heads that couldn't be eliminated when we went back to continue our work. And so when one was knocked down or discredited by the colonial governments who were fighting, then we had another one to come up and take its place. And that's the work that we want to continue in this arena. And I think that's the significance and the message we need to bring to our youth and give them the tools and the mechanisms that didn't exist in '77 to say, we are here, we continue, and we now have an impact on not only the ILO, but everything that happens in each of our respective countries. If they can't deal with a policy, they can't create a new law without considering Indigenous. That didn't exist before. So moving forward, our youth have tools that we've created over the last 36 years. And I think if any message at all comes out of that, is that we continue to be under attack. We continue to be strong in our battles and a fight. And we need to continue to educate ourselves around these tools and how useful they can really be. Because now we have what has been termed the imprint, the Indigenous imprint on everything that happens in the world. We didn't have that in 1977. And so, I don't know if I'm exceeding my 4 minutes. Okay. But, you know, I won't be here Friday, so I'm grasping my time. I think that I'm sad to see that we don't have more people here. I'm sad to see that we don't have enough money to fund this kind of activity. I'm elated to see that we as people are still here, and that some of our young people are here, and they're the young people being educated. But that's our role now. And as one of the things that is ironic to me that we fought for is the right to educate our children. We didn't have Indigenous written books with Indigenous authors and educated children. Now we have more lawyers, more PhDs, Indigenous people, but they're succumbing, many of them are succumbing to the brainwashing of the educational universities and institutions. So we have to fight harder for our own right to educate in our own language and our own values. You know, those are critical things where the battles are now. And continue, you know, with my other sister here, we were talking about the policies that are affecting us, and genocide is still being practiced in the United States. It's not coming in and killing us anymore, but it's diabetes, it's alcohol, it's drugs, it's losing our culture and killing our language and no longer having even the traditions of feeding together in a way that we used to do. A person showed up at your house, you eat, because when you eat together, you share your thoughts, your love, your caring, your obligations and responsibilities, and all of that is made clear in that sharing. And we have to hold on to those precious little moments. So I will give you back my 4 minutes. Thank you.
One of the problems that we have back home right now with the Declaration, whilst it's a magnificent achievement on the part of all of those who participated in it, and to get it where it is, and to get to that position of at least having a Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, we are grounded and floored by one section, one article within that Declaration, and that is that if we want our rights recognised, then we must acknowledge and recognise the territorial integrity of the state, of our parent state. For us, we don't want that. We're not going to recognise the territorial integrity of a British colony called Australia.
Yo no he cambiado. Sí me han dado ropa. Aquí, poniendo, desbaratando. Y ya he hecho. Así envejezco yo. No he cambiado ninguna cosa.
Un día, no muy lejano pueblo mío, los niños empezaremos a pisar con firmeza, con la misma firmeza limpiaremos el camino para que otros no tengan miedo de dar un paso, para que no existan espinas de tormento. Si hace falta revolución y así limpiarlas, no nos detendremos, seguiremos caminando, carajo.